Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. On the outside, on the partial inside, nooks and crannies, what have you. English muffins. Welcome to the show. This is Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts, the podcast. And I am your host, Mike Luck. This is sort of a bonus episode of sorts, I guess you'd call it. This is something I've been bandying about as a subsection of a much larger topic. That much larger topic being Nazi occultism. Now, I've been tiptoeing around doing that particular topic because it is a big one. So, I have sort of broken it down into smaller components, but if that's something that you guys would potentially be interested in hearing, sound off in the comments, and I'll try to put something together, because it is something I've wanted to look into, but it would not only be Nazi occultism, but mad science as well, and the two tend to converge fairly well. So, once again, if that's something you guys be interested in, let me know. But this particular topic, sort of a subsection of that kind of veers off into its own weird tangents and whatnot. So, yeah, basically, this is just something I've broken off that kind of serves as a potential tangential avenue of Nazi occultism. I'm not going to get into the Nazi occultism stuff in this episode directly, but it's such a strange tangential that it branches off into so much of its own stuff. So I thought I'd go ahead and throw this out because this may be the only episode this week, as I'm still working on essentially the final episode of Black Magic Academies. I need a little more time to finish it out. It's becoming, as these things tend to do, a bit more bigger and unwieldy than I had originally intended, and then from there I plan to branch off into a sort of, I guess you'd call it like a overarching idea of dark psychogeography, infernal geometry, and dark megalopolomancy, which is sort of the how to put it, it's like the sorcery of cities. So exploring place and its occult associations and functions and exerted influence upon the human mind, body, soul, etc., however you want to frame it. So yeah, we'll get into a little bit of other stuff, like kind of a sneak peek of sorts, very very modest one, as to some of the topics I've got planned for future episodes after this series. But this particular episode includes ideas I've kind of been, just circling for a while. Like, I've got tons and tons of just spiral notebooks, etc., just filled with weird ideas, just stuff I've kind of written about just throughout life, because I'm John Doe from the movie Seven. I just got tons and tons of spirals of weird little ideas and concepts that I've kind of toyed with forever and just never really materialized into much. So I kind of decided to turn them into various episodes of the show. So that's just kind of a, behind the scenes sneak peek into the process that goes behind some of this. Anywho, without further ado, let's get into today's topic: Algol, the demon star. While I don't personally subscribe to the traditional tenets of astrology, I am, however, intrigued by the possibility that celestial bodies might exert tangible physical influences on human biology and consciousness through mechanisms beyond conventional understanding. The field that most closely examines these interactions that I've found that kind of mirrors my interest underlying these concepts is called bioastronautics, which focuses on the effects of spaceflight and cosmic phenomena on biological systems, including human physiology and psychology. Research in this domain has demonstrated that extended periods of radiation exposure can have significant effects on the human body, including changes in immune, neural, and optical systems. Beyond these established physical effects, some researchers propose that there may be more subtle energetic interactions between celestial bodies and human consciousness, suggesting a deeper, more subtle interplay between the energy emanations of various star systems and the psycho-spiritual journey of humanity as a whole, or individually as well. The gravitational and electromagnetic forces emitted by stars and planets, while scientifically acknowledged as extremely weak at a cosmic distance, can still interact with human biological systems in ways we've yet to fully understand. As noted in scientific critiques of astrology, we can see how infinitesimally small the gravitational and or other effects produced by the distant planets and far more distant stars react upon the human body. But the possibility remains that these subtle forces might have cumulative and resonant effects on sensitive biological organisms over time. Historical esoteric traditions have long hypothesized connections between celestial bodies and human physiology and psychology, with researcher Richard Mead suggesting that due to the astral nature of the human body, it's subject to an all-pervading gravitation emanating from the stars. After all, to quote Carl Sagan, "We're made of star stuff," meaning that the atoms in our bodies, such as carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, etc., were forged inside stars and stellar explosions billions of years ago. So we are literally composed of recycled cosmic material, making humanity a way for the cosmos to experience itself. The specific focus of this episode on the star Algol stems from its remarkable consistency as a symbol of malevolence across diverse cultures and historical periods. Known as Beta Persei in astronomical terminology, Algol has been historically associated with bloody violence across a wide variety of cultures, and referenced to as the Gorgon of Perseus in Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos, where it was associated specifically with death by decapitation. The very name Algol derives from the Arabic Ras al-Ghul. Yeah, I know. I'm a comic book nerd, I know. Meaning the head of the demon, while ancient Greek traditions connected it with the monstrous Gorgon Medusa. This cross-cultural consistency in perceiving Algol as an agent of misfortune, violence, and supernatural evil suggests that ancient observers may have detected something genuinely unusual about this star that transcended mere mythological projection. What makes Algol particularly intriguing from a scientific perspective is its distinct variability as an eclipsing binary star system, where the dimmer star regularly passes in front of the brighter one, causing the star to visibly wink or blink in the night sky with a clock-like precision every 2.867 days. This unusual characteristic would have been particularly striking to ancient observers who had no understanding of its astronomical cause, likely contributing to its sinister reputation. The association of Algol with a demon-like creature in both Greek and Arabic traditions suggests that its variability was known long before its scientific explanation was discovered, though the validity of this claim is somewhat questionable. As far as like claims of ancient Egyptian documentation on these observable effects. This convergence of unusual astronomical properties with consistently malevolent cultural associations across civilizations makes Algol a compelling subject for investigation into potential connections between celestial phenomena and human perception, whether physical or psychological. The star known as Algol, designated also as Beta Persei, has captivated human imagination for millennia as one of the most notorious celestial bodies in both Eastern and Western traditions. Its name derives from the Arabic Rash Algol, meaning the head of the demon or the head of the ogre, which immediately establishes its malevolent reputation in Arabic astronomy and astrology. This designation reflects a widespread perception across cultures that Algol embodies destructive, violent, and chaotic energies that can profoundly influence human affairs when prominently positioned in the heavens. The star's sinister reputation transcends geographical and cultural boundaries, appearing in traditions as diverse as ancient Greek, Hebrew, Chinese, Indian, and medieval European, where it's consistently been associated with misfortune, violence, and supernatural evil. In Western astrological traditions, Algol has long been considered the most malevolent star in the heavens, often referred to as the demon star or the blinking demon due to its distinctive variability. Ancient astrologers associated Algol with decapitation, mutilation, extreme violence, and sudden catastrophic misfortune. When prominent in a natal chart, particularly in conjunction with personal planets or angles, Algol was believed to indicate a person prone to extreme violence, rage, or who might themselves become a victim of intense violence. The medieval astrologer Guido Bonatti wrote that Algol, quote, gives a violent and deathly nature, unquote, while the 17th century astrologer William Lilly associated it with, quote, a violent death or a violent and wicked nature, unquote. This perception of Algol as embodying the most destructive aspects of human nature has persisted in Western astrology into modern day, where it continues to be regarded with caution and respect for its powerful, although volatile, influence. The mythology surrounding Algol in Western tradition primarily derives from its identification with the head of the Gorgon Medusa, the terrifying monster with serpents for hair whose gaze could turn men to stone. In Greek mythology, the hero Perseus beheaded Medusa while she slept and later used her severed head as a weapon to turn the sea monster Cetus to stone, or the Kraken if you're watching the old stop-motion animation movie, thereby saving the princess Andromeda from being sacrificed. According to myth, the gods then placed Medusa's head among the stars as the constellation Perseus, with Algol marking the location of the Gorgon's eye, or sometimes her entire severed head. And this association with a symbol of petrifying evil reinforced Algol's reputation as a star of destructive power and malevolent influence. The Greeks referred to it as Gorgonea or Gorgonus, directly linking it to the Gorgon myth, while the Romans sometimes called it Caput Medusae, or Medusa's head. In Hebrew tradition, Algol was identified with Lilith, the dangerous nighttime demon who preyed on infants and seduced men in their sleep. The Talmudic tradition associates Lilith with the star of the night that brings harm to children. And some medieval Hebrew astronomical texts specifically identify Algol as Lilith's star. This connection reinforced Algol's reputation as a harbinger of misfortune, particularly for the vulnerable and innocent. The association with Lilith also linked Algol to themes of unbridled sexuality, rebellion against divine order, and the dangerous aspects of feminine power that existed outside of patriarchal control. In some Kabbalistic traditions, Algol was considered one of the most dangerous influences in the celestial sphere, capable of disrupting spiritual harmony and inviting demonic influence when its energy wasn't properly contained or directed. In Eastern astrological traditions, particularly Vedic astrology, Algol, also known as Aru or Ardra, is associated with intense emotional energy, destruction, and transformation. Located in the nakshatra or lunar mansion of Ardra, which is ruled by Rudra, the fierce aspect of Shiva associated with storms and destruction, Algol embodies the principle of tearing down to make way for renewal. Unlike the purely malevolent Western interpretation, Vedic tradition recognizes Algol's destructive potential as part of a larger cosmic cycle of creation and destruction. However, its influence is still considered dangerous and volatile, capable of bringing sudden upheaval, emotional turmoil, and catastrophic events when activated in an astrological chart. The associated deity, Rudra, represents the fierce, destructive aspect of divine energy that can both devastate and purify, reflecting the complex dual nature of Algol in Eastern thought. In Chinese astronomy, Algol was identified as Da Ling, the fifth star of the mausoleum, forming part of the asterism representing the mausoleum or tomb structures on the borders of the celestial court. This association with death and burial reinforced its connection to mortality and the underworld in Chinese cosmology. The Chinese also sometimes referred to Algol as Cai Shui, meaning pile of corpses. Nice, right? Directly linking it to death and disaster. In traditional Chinese astrology, Algol was considered an inauspicious star that could bring misfortune, particularly when it appeared in certain astrological configurations related to the emperor or the state. Its association with death and burial placed it firmly in the category of yin, dark, and passive forces that could disrupt the harmonious balance of cosmic energies when its influence became too strong. The scientific understanding of Algol reveals a fascinating celestial phenomena that likely contributed to its sinister reputation. Algol is actually a triple star system located approximately 92.8 light years from Earth in the constellation Perseus. The system consists of Beta Persei A, a bright main sequence star, Beta Persei B, a dimmer subgiant, and Beta Persei C, a more distant companion star. The most striking feature of this system is that Beta Persei A and B form an eclipsing binary, with the dimmer star orbiting the brighter one every 2.867 days. So when the dimmer star passes in front of the brighter one, the system's apparent magnitude drops from a 2.1 to a 3.4, making Algol visibly wink or blink in the night sky, a phenomenon that would have been particularly striking to ancient observers who had no understanding of its astronomical cause. This luminescent variability, which occurs with clock-like regularity, likely contributed significantly to Algol's reputation as a supernatural or demonic presence, as the star appeared to be blinking at Earth in a manner that seemed deliberate and ominous to ancient observers. The cultural impact of Algol on Western civilization extends beyond astrology and astronomy into literature, art, and pop culture. Its association with the Gorgon Medusa made it a symbol of petrifying evil and dangerous feminine power in Renaissance art and literature. In John Milton's Paradise Lost, Algol is mentioned among the stars that fell from the heavens with Satan, reinforcing its association with rebellion and cosmic evil. In Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, the character Mistress Hibbins is described as having a, quote, fierce and constant nature, unquote, like the star Algol, linking the star to witchcraft and supernatural evil. In modern times, Algol has appeared in numerous works of science fiction and fantasy, often as a location of alien evil or a source of supernatural power, continuing its long tradition as a symbol of cosmic malevolence. And then, of course, there's the Batman villain, known as Ra's al Ghul, but I'll refrain from totally nerding out at the moment. In Islamic astronomy and astrology, Algol's reputation as the demon's head was particularly pronounced. The 10th century Persian astronomer Al-Sufi described it as the demon's head in his Book of Fixed Stars, while medieval Islamic astrologers considered it one of the most unfortunate stars in the heavens, capable of bringing disaster, violence, and supernatural harm. In some Islamic traditions, Algol was associated with the jinn or shaitan, and was considered particularly dangerous when it rose heliacally or was in conjunction with the moon. The star's variability was seen as evidence of its demonic nature, as it appeared to be playing with its light in a manner that suggested supernatural agency rather than any natural phenomenon. The perception of Algol as a manifestation of cosmic evil influenced Islamic magical practices, where it was sometimes invoked in protective talismans against the very forces it represented. The influence of Algol on Western astrology can be traced through numerous historical texts that document its effects. The first-century poet Manilius wrote in his Astronomica that Algol presides over the wicked and the guilt of crime, while the 4th century astrologer Firmicus Maternus associated it with the loss of one's head. In the Renaissance, the famous astrologer Cornelius Agrippa wrote that Algol makes men to be beheaded, reflecting the persistent associations with decapitation that derived from the Medusa myth. These associations continued into the early modern period, with astrologers like Jean-Baptiste Morin and J.B. Groff maintaining Algol's reputation as a star of extreme misfortune and violence. The consistency of these associations across centuries demonstrates the enduring power of Algol's symbolic significance in Western astrological traditions. In contemporary astrology, Algol continues to be regarded as a powerful and potentially dangerous influence. Modern astrologers often interpret Algol as representing repressed rage, primal passion, and the destructive potential that lies beneath the surface of civilization. When prominent in an astrological chart, it sometimes is associated with intense creativity that emerges from dark places, psychic sensitivity that borders on the supernatural, or the capacity to channel primal forces in a way that can be either transformative or devastating, depending on how they are directed. Some contemporary astrologers have attempted to rehabilitate Algol's reputation by emphasizing its potential for cathartic release and the transformation of destructive energy into creative power. But even these more positive interpretations acknowledge the inherent danger and volatility associated with the star's influence. Algol is one of the most famous stars in the night sky, but its real secret isn't just that it blinks. It's that it's a cosmic thief of sorts. While it looks like a single point of light, it's actually a crowded neighborhood of 3 stars orbiting one another, with the most drama occurring between the 2 closest companions. Astronomers were long puzzled by the Algol paradox. In a pair of stars, the heavier one should age faster. Yet in this system, the lighter star looks quote-unquote older, while the heavier one still looks young. The mystery was solved when scientists realized that as the original heavy star aged and expanded, its gravity could no longer hold on to its outer layers, causing its gas to spill over onto its smaller neighbor. Over millions of years, so much material was traded that the 2 stars essentially swapped roles, leaving us with a thief star that's now the heavier of the pair. This entire process is further influenced by a third, more distant star that circles the pair every 1.86 years, proving that stars in close quarters can literally trade lives by swapping their mass. In contemporary popular culture, Algol's sinister reputation continues to inspire creative works across various media. In the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game, Algol appears as a chaotic evil, whose influence can corrupt and destroy. In H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, Algol is sometimes identified as one of the stars from which alien horrors originate, or through which they exert their influence upon Earth. In the television series Babylon 5, the Algol system is mentioned as the location of a shadow base, continuing the association with cosmic evil. In music, the experimental band Algol takes its name from the star, while the composer Ioannis Xenakis created a piece titled Algol that attempts to musically represent the star's variability and chaotic energy. These modern cultural references demonstrate the enduring power of Algol's symbolic association with malevolence and cosmic danger. The psychological interpretation of Algol's influence in modern astrology often connects it with Jungian concepts of the shadow self and the integration of primal energies. Some contemporary astrologers view Algol as representing the collective shadow of humanity, the repressed violent, sexual, and destructive impulses that civilization seeks to deny, but nevertheless exerts a powerful influence on human behavior. From this perspective, Algol's challenging aspects in a birth chart can indicate a need to confront and integrate these shadowy aspects rather than allowing them to operate unconsciously, where they can erupt in destructive and highly unpleasant ways. This psychological approach attempts to work with Algol's energy rather than simply fearing it, recognizing that the primal forces it represents are an essential part of human nature that can't be simply suppressed without consequence. The astronomical observation of Algol has played a significant role in the history of science. Its variability was first recorded in ancient times, with evidence suggesting that ancient Egyptians may have used the Cairo calendar to track Algol's period as early as 1244 to 1163 BCE. The first definitive European observation of its variability was made by Gimignano Montanari in 1667. But it wasn't until 1782 that John Goodricke determined its period of variability and proposed that its dimming was caused by a dark companion star orbiting the brighter one. A remarkable hypothesis that was later confirmed spectroscopically to be true. Goodricke's proposal marked an important milestone in the development of variable star astronomy and our understanding of binary systems. The fact that Algol's variability is visible to the naked eye and occurs with clock-like precision has made it an important object for amateur astronomers and a valuable teaching tool for demonstrating stellar phenomena. In esoteric traditions and occult practices, Algol has sometimes been invoked in magical operations for purposes of protection, destruction, or transformation. Some medieval grimoires contain instructions for creating talismans under Algol that were supposed to confer protection against enemies or the power to overcome obstacles through forceful means. In certain ceremonial magic traditions, Algol is associated with the Qliphoth or shells in Kabbalistic demonology, the realms of unbalanced force and spiritual imbalance that represent the dark side of creation. In these contexts, working with Algol's energy is considered extremely dangerous and suitable only for experienced practitioners who can properly contain and direct its volatile power. This esoteric tradition continues in certain forms of contemporary ceremonial magic, where Algol is sometimes invoked in operations involving the confrontation with and integration of shadow aspects of consciousness. The cultural impact of Algol on Eastern civilizations extends beyond Vedic astrology into other traditions of the region. In Tibetan astronomy, Algol was sometimes associated with the demon Rahu, the north node of the moon, who is said to periodically devour the sun or moon during eclipses. In some Buddhist traditions, Algol was considered one of the inauspicious stars whose influence could disrupt spiritual practice and create obstacles to enlightenment. In Japanese astronomy, Algol was sometimes identified with the Oni, or demons and ogres, of Japanese folklore, reinforcing its association with malevolent supernatural beings. These cross-cultural associations in Eastern traditions demonstrate the universality of Algol's perception as a bearer of dangerous, chaotic energy across diverse cultural contexts. The connection between Algol and the Hindu-Buddhist demonic head Rahu represents a fascinating convergence of astronomical observation and mythological interpretation across cultures. And this is where we get into the very tenuous connections to Nazi occultism, but really, it's all in the interpretation. So, in Vedic astronomy, Rahu is identified not as a physical celestial body, but as a mathematical point, the north lunar node where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic. So this invisible shadowy entity is described as a severed head that periodically swallows the sun and moon, causing eclipses. The association with Algol is particularly compelling given that Algol's name derives from the Arabic Ras Algol, meaning the demon's head, creating a direct linguistic and conceptual parallel with Rahu as a celestial demonic head whose influence manifests through periodic celestial events. This cross-cultural identification of Algol with Rahu likely stems from the star's observable variability, the winking or blinking as the dimmer companion star eclipses the brighter one every 2.87 days, mirroring the periodic obscuration characteristic of Rahu's eclipse-causing activity. The symbolic resonance between Algol and Rahu extends beyond their shared characteristic as celestial demon heads to encompass their association with karmic retribution and spiritual disruption. In Hindu mythology, Rahu was originally a demon who disguised himself as a god to partake of the divine nectar of immortality, only to be decapitated by Vishnu before the nectar could pass beyond his throat. This myth establishes Rahu as a disembodied head condemned to eternal existence, periodically seeking vengeance by swallowing the luminaries that witnessed his transformation. Similarly, Algol's identification with the severed head of Medusa in Greek tradition creates a parallel mythological framework of a demonic head whose gaze holds destructive power. This convergence of decapitation symbolism across these distinct traditions suggests a deep archetypal resonance between the observable astronomical phenomena of Algol's variability and the human psyche's interpretation of such celestial irregularities as manifestations of cosmic violence and divine retribution. The esoteric significance of Rahu in Hindu and Buddhist traditions aligns closely with Algol's reputation for malevolence in Western occult thought. In Vedic astrology, Rahu is associated with worldly desires, ambition, materialism, and psychological disturbances, qualities that mirror Algol's traditional astrological significance for violence, extremism, and destructive passion. Both are considered forces of disruption that can create obstacles to spiritual development, yet paradoxically offer potential for profound transformation through confrontation with shadow aspects of consciousness. The Buddhist tradition particularly emphasizes Rahu's role as a force that creates obstacles to enlightenment, paralleling Algol's association with spiritual disruption in various occult traditions. This conceptual alignment between Eastern and Western interpretations of these celestial phenomena suggests a cross-cultural recognition of certain astronomical influences as agents of both spiritual danger and potential transformation. The connections between Algol and Rahu and black sun symbolism, there it is, emerges through their shared association with eclipses and the temporary obfuscation of light. In esoteric traditions, the black sun represents not merely the absence of light, but a hidden, luminous darkness that contains the potential for spiritual regeneration and transformation. The alchemical tradition, in particular, developed elaborate symbolism around the black sun, or Sol Niger, as representing the nigredo stage of the alchemical process, the initial phase of decomposition and putrefaction necessary for subsequent spiritual rebirth. Algol's periodic dimming and Rahu's eclipse-causing activity both embody this principle of apparent darkness containing hidden potential, as the star's temporary disappearance is followed by its inevitable return to full brightness, mirroring the alchemical journey through darkness toward illumination. This symbolic resonance between astronomical phenomena and alchemical processes underscores the deep archetypal connections between celestial cycles and spiritual transformation across esoteric traditions. The motif of headlessness and decapitation that recurs throughout various occult traditions finds its astronomical expression in both Algol and Rahu. In Western occult symbolism, the severed head represents the separation of consciousness from bodily limitations and the transcendence of conventional perception. This symbolism appears prominently in traditions ranging from the Celtic cult of the skull to Gnostic Christianity's veneration of the head of John the Baptist. The association of Algol with Medusa's severed head creates a direct astronomical reference for this symbolic complex, while Rahu's existence as a disembodied demon head in Hindu mythology reinforces its cross-cultural significance. In certain tantric traditions, the concept of chopping off the head represents the severing of egoistic consciousness and the attainment of enlightenment through the transcendence of ordinary perception, a spiritual paradox that mirrors Algol's dual nature as both a source of violence and potential transformation. The connection between Algol and black sun symbolism becomes particularly pronounced in certain Germanic occult traditions that developed during the early 20th century. The symbol of the Schwarzsang, or black sun, incorporates 12 sig runes arranged in a wheel pattern representing both the cosmic cycles and the hidden source of spiritual power that lies behind ordinary sunlight. This esoteric symbol draws on alchemical traditions of the Sol Niger while incorporating elements of Germanic mythology and rune magic. The connection to Algol emerges through the star's association with hidden, chaotic forces that periodically disrupt the regular order of the cosmos, mirroring the black sun symbolism as a source of invisible power that operates behind the visible phenomena of the everyday material world. In these traditions, Algol would be interpreted as an astronomical manifestation of the same principle represented by the black sun symbol, the visible expression of a hidden, chaotic, cosmic force that both destroys and regenerates. The esoteric interpretation of Algol as a manifestation of black sun principles finds support in certain strands of theosophical and anthroposophical thought, which developed elaborate cosmologies linking astronomical phenomena with spiritual evolution. These traditions often interpreted variable stars like Algol as representing cosmic pulsations of spiritual energy that influence human consciousness in ways that transcend ordinary physical mechanisms. The association with Rahu reinforces this interpretation, as both represent celestial forces that operate through periodic disruption rather than a constant influence, mirroring the black sun symbolism as a hidden source of power that manifests through cycles of apparent darkness and subsequent illumination. This conceptual framework allows for an interpretation of Algol not as merely a malevolent influence, but as a necessary disruptive force that creates the conditions for spiritual transformation through the temporary dissolution of ordinary consciousness. The motif of decapitation that connects Algol, Rahu, and black sun symbolism finds its most extreme expression in certain tantric and left-hand path traditions that ritualize the severing of the head as a symbol of spiritual liberation. In these traditions, the head represents the seat of ego consciousness and conventional perception, while its removal symbolizes the attainment of transcendent awareness beyond ordinary limitations. The astronomical correlation with Algol and Rahu provides a celestial template for this spiritual process, as both represent cosmic forces that periodically decapitate the luminaries through eclipse, temporarily severing their connection to the visible world before their inevitable restoration. This ritualization of cosmic violence reflects a deep recognition of the transformative potential inherent in disruption and apparent destruction, a theme that runs through numerous esoteric traditions and finds its astronomical expression in the periodic dimming of Algol and the eclipse-causing sun-eating activity of Rahu. The connection between Algol and black sun symbolism also manifests in certain interpretations of the Kabbalistic concepts of the Qliphoth, the shells or husks, that represent unbalanced spiritual forces and the dark side of creation. In these traditions, the Qliphoth are sometimes associated with celestial bodies that emit darkness rather than light, representing the cosmic principles of contraction and limitation that serve as the necessary counterpart to expansion and revelation. Algol's periodic dimming and Rahu's eclipse-causing sun-eating activity both embody this principle of apparent darkness as a necessary cosmic function, rather than merely an absence of light. This interpretation allows for an understanding of Algol not as an evil influence, but as a manifestation of necessary cosmic principles that create balance through periodic contraction and apparent destruction, mirroring the black sun symbolism as a source of hidden power that operates through cycles of withdrawal rather than constant expression. The esoteric significance of Algol's connection to Rahu and black sun symbolism finds its ultimate expression in certain traditions of spiritual alchemy that seek to integrate shadow aspects of consciousness rather than merely suppressing or transcending them. In these traditions, the confrontation with Algol's chaotic energy or Rahu's disruptive influence represent a necessary stage in spiritual development, the conscious integration of destructive and chaotic forces rather than their avoidance or elimination. This approach mirrors the alchemical process of confronting the nigredo stage of decomposition and putrefaction as a necessary prelude to subsequent spiritual regeneration. The astronomical correlation with Algol and Rahu provides a cosmic template for this spiritual integration. The astronomical correlation with Algol and Rahu provides a cosmic template for this spiritual process, suggesting that the periodic disruption of ordinary consciousness through contact with these forces represents not a spiritual danger, but a necessary opportunity for transformation through the integration of shadow aspects of both personal and cosmic consciousness. If one were to further associate Rahu and Algol with both Sun Eater as well as headless symbolism, further esoteric extensions could be made into Chinese Tianggu sky dog symbolism, along with its eventual inexplicable transformation into the basis of Japanese Tengu myth and folklore, not to mention worldwide black dog mythical imagery and symbolism, as well as the Thelemic and Pseudo-Egyptian rituals and symbolism associated with mummies and the opening of the mouth ceremony practiced within mummification rites, as well as the bornless one or headless one rituals prominent within the Crowleyan Thelemic ritual practices. However, these may be mere overextensions of symbolic resonance on my part. I plan at some point on doing further research into the aforementioned Thelemic ritual practices, while the vast amount of sun-eating black dog or wolf symbolism would ultimately end up doubling or tripling the length of this episode, so once again, I'll refrain from utterly nerding out at this particular point. I decided to put this episode out because I'm still working on finishing up the final episode of the Black Magic Academies series, as well as putting together the early foundations or drafts for another series covering the occult history of money. I'm also putting together something on dark matter monsters, as well as entities that for now I'm simply just designating as memezoids. Not to mention, I'm still trying to find time to sit and watch Hokum, which I've been looking forward to for months now. No, don't spoil it. Puka Puka. The scientific study of Algol continues to contribute to our understanding of stellar astrophysics. Modern observations using space-based telescopes have revealed that Algol is actually a radio star, emitting radio waves that vary in correlation with its orbital period. The system also produces X-ray emissions, likely resulting from magnetic interaction between the stars. Detailed spectroscopic studies have allowed astronomers to determine the physical properties of the system with great precision, including the mass, radius, and temperatures of the component stars. These observations have made Algol one of the best studied binary star systems and an important laboratory for testing theories of stellar evolution, mass transfer, and magnetic interaction between stars. In contemporary astrological practice, the interpretation of Algol has become more nuanced than in traditional astrology. While many astrologers still regard Algol as a challenging influence, some emphasize its potential for catalyzing profound transformation through the confrontation with shadow aspects of consciousness. The exact interpretation of Algol in a birth chart often depends on factors such as its aspects to other planets, its house position, and the individual's level of spiritual development. All stuff that I haven't the faintest clue as to how it all works, the mechanics of it. Astrology, say what you will about it, but it does get quite complex in certain aspects. Some modern astrologers view Algol as representing primal feminine power in its untamed form, a force that can be destructive when repressed, but transformative when acknowledged and integrated in a conscious way. The more complex interpretation attempts to honor both the star's challenging nature and its potential for positive transformation when its energy is worked with consciously rather than feared or denied. The enduring fascination with Algol across cultures and throughout history speaks to its powerful resonance as a representation of the dangerous, chaotic, and destructive aspects of existence that civilization seeks to control but can never entirely eliminate. Whether viewed as a literal demon in the heavens, a symbol of psychological shadow, or simply a fascinating astronomical phenomena, Algol continues to capture human imagination as a reminder of the primal forces that lie beneath the surface of our everyday ordered reality. Its regular blinking in the night sky serves as a cosmic metronome, marking the eternal dance between creation and destruction, order and chaos, light and darkness, that characterizes both the cosmos and the human psyche. As above, so below. That's going to do it for this mini episode. Hopefully before the weekend hits, I will have the final episode of the Black Magic Academies series ready to roll for recording. So I just want to make sure I put something out this week, trying to keep things consistent around here. So, and once again, yeah, if anyone's interested in an eventual series on Nazi occultism, let me know in the comments. Or if you want to reach me directly, you can do that at Kooks and Cranks, KOOKSANDCRANKS @gmail.com. But yeah, like I said earlier, stuff coming up on the docket. Dark matter monsters, memezoids, the occult history of money, which is shaping up to be quite eye-opening. Oh, man. If not eye-opening, then it's kind of stuff that's like, yeah, that's kind of both infuriating, and I also kind of like knew this sort of in a way. Like it's stuff that makes a lot of sense, but also very, very strange. Just the whole it's weird. It's a weird one. So the the place of money and exchange and ideas like talismans of value and monetary exchange originating in things like sacrifice and sacrifices of high value, way into the deep dark history of remuneration to dark entities, etc. Things of that nature.
Did you ever see the back of a $20 bill, man?
No, I don't know, yo.
Did you ever see the back of a $20 bill? On weed? Oh, there's some weird shit in there, man. There's a dude sitting in the bushes, man. Does he have a gun? I don't know, man. I don't know. What? Red team go. Red team go. It's just some weird shit, man.
Man, you fucking crazy, yo.
Got another one in the works based on the Archontic Soul Trap system and a re-examination of a book called The Game of Saturn that I've been meaning to put together forever, but getting a little closer to actually manifesting that into a reality. So, yeah. And when I say memezoids, I essentially mean like a more pseudoscientific, psychosocial updating, I guess, of concepts like the tulpa and the egregore, etc., things like that. So, getting a little deeper into that concept or collection of concepts. So, yeah, if any of those sound interesting, let me know. I can bump anyone up the docket. Dark matter monsters, all that material springs from a singular source, one book, called, you're never going to believe this, Dark Matter Monsters. Who'd have thunk it? But that sort of examines the scientific side of how these cryptids and humanoids, etc., can sort of fade in and out of reality, essentially. Tries to use various scientific frameworks to maybe sort of kind of explain that. I have only perused through it, haven't gotten quite into it yet, but we'll see. Before any of that, once I finish up the current series, I plan to cap it off with a thorough examination of dark psychogeography, infernal geometry, infernal architecture, megalopolymancy. God, I love saying that word. It's the magic of cities, how cities may or may not be construed as collective organisms, how they exert unseen influences on us. And man, this stuff goes into some crazy places. Weird, ritualistic, alternative viewpoints on certain historical events, feng shui, ley lines, 33rd parallel, geomancy, etc., powers and principalities, etc., things like that. So, yeah, that's more on the immediate side of things coming up. But, yeah, once again, as far as the Nazi occultism thing, I don't have that slated anywhere. Because, like I said, that's going to be, if I do decide to go through with doing that, it's going to be a big series. Because there is so much to it. And as you can see with this episode, when I get into the certain aspects of it, it'll branch off into extremely weird tangential points. So, I don't know, if you're open to more of those weird esoteric tangential interpretations of some of that stuff, as well as the mad science aspects, because Nazi occultism and mad science, I kind of touched on it a little bit before, but Gestapo / astro-Nazi aspects of it as well. So like secret space program, breakaway civilization. Once again, if that's something anyone would be interested in, let me know. And yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of Kooks, Cranks, and Iconoclasts, the podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lucht, and I will see you, hopefully, again before the weekend. Thank you guys. You're the best. Fucking love all of you. Keep up the good work. Check you later.
Wham! His kappa is detated from his head.